Can technology fix the LCS problem? That is the question you opened with. The answer is yes. The technology has existed since 2021. The problem was never a lack of science, it was a bad design choice forced by an unrealistic speed requirement. The entire story connects. A gearbox engineered to the breaking point, a fix developed and tested, a Saudi variant that avoided the issue entirely, and a Navy that ultimately walked away from its own design when the frigate competition came around. The U.S. Navy Freedom-class LCS does not have bad engines. It uses a Rolls-Royce MT-30 gas turbine, the same engine in the British Queen Elizabeth-class carriers, and a Colt Pillstick diesel, both thoroughly proven in other naval programs. The failure is in the combining gear manufactured by RENK AG, the transmission that merges diesel power and turbine power into one shaft to achieve the ship's 40-knot top speed. In 2020 and 2021, USS Detroit, LCS-7, and USS Littoral, LCS-9, suffered propulsion failures traced to the high-speed clutch bearings inside the combining gear. These bearings wore out far faster than anticipated, destroying the gear and leaving the ship unable to combine both engine sources. The Navy formally classified this as a latent defect, a hidden design flaw, allowing the service to force Lockheed Martin to split repair costs 50-50, a measure that almost never happens after a ship is accepted.
Lockheed Martin, RENK AG, and the Navy jointly developed a remedy: replace the two high-speed clutch bearings with a heavier-duty journal-bearing version that would not fail as easily. A joint team conducted a root cause analysis and finalized a design fix that went through 2 phases of testing: land-based testing at the RENK factory in Germany, followed by at-sea trials on USS Minneapolis-Saint Paul LCS-21. In November 2021, Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Mike Gilday confirmed the fix was completed and tested, and the Navy accepted LCS-21 as the first ship cleared for unrestricted operations. Each retrofit takes 4 to 6 months because workers must navigate a very tight machinery space with significant interferences that have to be removed to reach the gear. By mid-2023, nearly half the class had been repaired. So can the problem be fixed today? Technically, yes, the solution is in production and has been proven. Practically, the remaining ships must be scheduled for retrofit one by one, and while waiting, the Navy limits them to about 30 to 35 knots to protect the old bearings. The Saudi MMSC is built on the same 118-meter Freedom-class steel monohull produced by the same team at Fincantieri Marinette Marine. The critical difference is that the MMSC was ordered after the combining gear defect was already discovered, so its design could incorporate the hard lessons learned from the American LCS program. The MMSC is powered by a combined diesel and gas CODAG propulsion system, but targets a maximum speed of around 30 knots, rather than the 40-plus knots demanded by the U.S. Navy. Lower top speed means lower load on the combining gear bearings, which translates to far higher reliability across the propulsion system. In effect, Saudi Arabia bought the same hull, but without the self-destructive speed requirement that had forced American engineers to push the transmission beyond the limits of its bearings.
Why not just go all diesel? You asked the right engineering question. Why not rip out the turbine and fit all diesels, or simply downrate the engines? Downrating is exactly what the Navy does now as an emergency measure. Ships without the fix are banned from using both engine types simultaneously, keeping them well below their design speed. Going all diesel on an existing Freedom-class hull, however, is impossible without rebuilding the ship. The MT-30 gas turbine is remarkably compact for its 36 megawatts of power. A diesel engine delivering equivalent power would be much larger and heavier, fundamentally altering the ship's center of gravity and stability. The cost of such a reconstruction would approach that of an entirely new hull. That is why the middle path won. Keep the proven engines, replace the flawed bearings with a robust design, and stop pretending that every mission requires a 40-knot sprint.
Why U.S. Navy didn't want it anymore, even fixed. Even after the journal bearing fix was proven at sea, the U.S. Navy made it clear it did not want another Freedom-class LCS. Starting in the FY 2023 budget, the Navy repeatedly asked Congress for permission to early retire up to 9 Freedom hulls, some less than 5 years old, and one that had just received the new gearbox, to save an estimated $3.6 billion in operating costs. Congress only allowed 4 retirements, but the signal was unmistakable. The service had lost confidence. That loss of confidence is also why the Navy invoked the rare latent defect clause in the first place, forcing Lockheed Martin to pay exactly 1/2 of every $8 to $10 million combining gear retrofit, instead of the Navy footing the entire bill as usual. It was both a financial penalty and a public message. The Navy would rather spend money to get rid of the ships than to buy more of them, fixed or not.
Why not America didn't pick its own Saudi ship for the new frigate? When the Navy ran the FFGX frigate competition in 2019, Lockheed Martin had the obvious candidate, a frigate based on the Freedom-class hull, essentially an Americanized MMSC. Yet Lockheed Martin voluntarily withdrew its bid. Company officials explained that the Freedom hull would be pressed for space to accommodate the full suite of required FFGX capabilities, namely a Spy-Y-6 radar, 32 Mark 41 vertical launch cells, a full anti-submarine warfare suite, and the survivability standards of a traditional frigate. The lightweight LCS hull simply lacked the room, power, cooling, and structural robustness needed for that mission. The Navy instead selected the Italian FREM design, which became the Constellation-class. But Constellation then ran dramatically over budget, reaching roughly 80% of a destroyer's cost for 60% of the capability. In late 2025, the Navy truncated the Constellation program to just the first 2 ships already under construction and launched a new FFX program based on the Coast Guard's National Security Cutter hull.
You ended with trimarans, and the answer is yes, they absolutely can cross oceans. The Independence-class LCS is a trimaran design that evolved directly from Austal's high-speed commercial ferry Benchirigua Express, which operates daily in the Atlantic. The class has an official range of 4,300 nautical miles at 18 knots and has been deployed to the Philippine Sea, the Middle East, and the Western Pacific. Other trimarans have circumnavigated the globe, including the British research vessel RV Triton and the record-breaking Earth Race. The limitation is not the hull form itself, it is the trade-off. A lightweight aluminum trimaran built for 44 knots will fatigue faster in heavy seas than a 7,000-ton steel destroyer. The Navy now uses Independence-class ships primarily for mine countermeasures and as drone motherships in the Pacific, missions that exploit the trimaran's strengths, stability, a vast mission bay, and sprint speed without demanding decades of North Atlantic punishment. So the whole story connects. Technology solved the LCS gearbox problem in 2021, but the Navy had already designed a ship around an unrealistic speed goal. The Saudis bought the same basic hull without that self-defeating requirement, not by installing a corrected gearbox, but by accepting a lower speed that never stressed the transmission to failure in the first place. When America tried to turn that hull into a true frigate, it discovered the platform was too small for the job. The Trimaran variant that was often mocked can and does cross oceans. It simply cannot do everything at once. The LCS story is not a story of unfixable technology. It is a story of requirements that asked a single platform to be too many things, with a speed obsession that drove the most critical component past its breaking point.